unrivaled in his role as a communications innovator and cable entrepreneur, devoted to his family and dedicated to the employees that became an extended part of that family, admired by his peers, respected by his adversaries and competitors. The story of Gerry Lenfest is a tale of dreams achieved, of obstacles surmounted, of challenges met, and of generosity bestowed. The son of Harold Churchill Lenfest and Rena Fitzgerald Lenfest, H.F. Gerry Lenfest was born in Jacksonville, Florida in 1930. A year later, his parents pulled up stakes and with Gerry and his twin sister Marie in tow, moved nearly 1,000 miles north to Scarsdale, New York. There, Gerry's father, who had grown up in Brooklyn, went to work in the marine industry in Lower Manhattan. When Gerry was 13, the family moved to a farm in Lambertville, New Jersey, just across the river from New Hope, Pennsylvania. A longtime dream of his father's, to own a farm, had finally come to pass. But all too soon, tragedy struck, and the dream became a nightmare for young Gerry. Rena Fitzgerald Lenfest, his beloved and devoted mother, died suddenly of a cerebral hemorrhage, leaving young Gerry, as he described it, rudderless, without a positive vision of the future. With his father commuting 60 miles to Manhattan each day, Gerry found himself working the farm and living in relative isolation at the end of a dirt road. His grades, as well as his attitude, suffered. By the time he was a freshman in high school, his father knew that something drastic was needed to bring his son back to a purposeful path. Gerry needed focus and discipline, and he found them at Mercersburg Academy in south central Pennsylvania's Franklin County. At Mercersburg, Gerry regained his footing, becoming an active and involved student, taking part in sports, excelling in academics, and shining on the debate team. He graduated in 1949. Gerry Lenfest had turned his life around at Mercersburg, but at the age of 19, he still wasn't sure what he wanted to do with that life. So although he had a college acceptance in his pocket, he packed his sea bag and set sail on an oil tanker between Europe and Venezuela. After months of backbreaking work on the high seas, the ship sailed into Philadelphia, and Gerry shipped out to Washington and Lee University. He graduated in 1953 with a degree in economics, but his time on the merchant vessel had whetted his appetite for the sea, and he knew he had more to learn about responsibility and leadership. So Gerry Lenfest enlisted with a commission in the United States Navy. Before long, he was commanding a destroyer escort up and down the East Coast. Just as Gerry had turned his own life around, he soon turned the performance of his vessel around. Under his gifted guidance and command, the USS Coates went from having the squadron's worst record to winning every award in the Atlantic Fleet. Lieutenant Lenfest left the Navy after 2 years to attend law school, but continued in the Naval Reserves, holding the rank of captain when he retired. During his term in the Navy, Gerry had married Marguerite Brooks, whom he had met several years earlier. Now, as Gerry began law school at Columbia, Marguerite taught school on Long Island, and the two lived happily in New York's Greenwich Village. After graduation, he joined the law firm of Davis, Polk, and Wardwell, a position which led to a fateful meeting in Philadelphia with Walter Annenberg. For 5 years, he served as legal counsel in Annenberg's Triangle Publications Incorporated. Triangle owned TV Guide, 17 Magazine, and the Philadelphia Inquirer, as well as a collection of TV and radio stations and several cable properties. When Annenberg sold his radio and broadcast TV interests, Gerry became the publisher and editorial director of 17 and CEO of the cable systems. As he had done with everything in his career, Gerry made it his business to learn everything there was to know about the business. He was well on his way to the top of the corporate ladder. He could have rested on his laurels, served his time, and played it safe. But Gerry Lenfest was the captain of his own soul and an entrepreneur at heart. So when Annenberg decided to sell off his cable TV systems, Gerry Lenfest made a decision of his own. He was 44 years old, and ready to forge his own trail. He never turned back. Making the most of his natural talent as a salesman, he convinced a bank and 2 private investors in Lebanon, Pennsylvania, to front him $2.3 million. In 1974, Gerry Lenfest bought Lebanon Valley Cable and Suburban Cable TV from Walter Annenberg. And with those 7,600 subscribers, Lenfest Communications was born. Marguerite went back to school at night to take a bookkeeping course so she could set up and run the office. The two of them operated their newborn company out of the basement of their home in the suburbs north of Philadelphia, a home they still live in today. But that was only the beginning. Gerry Lenfest was just getting started, and his timing was perfect, because the first big cable boom was underway. With the advent of new satellite-based programming and premier services like HBO and ESPN, cable TV was taking off. And Lenfest Communications was one of the first in line to offer these services to subscribers. Over the next 7 years, Lenfest's subscriber base grew from less than 8,000 to 40,000. And bucking conventional wisdom, Lenfest opted to build a multi-system operation out of geographically contiguous cable systems rather than acquiring properties helter-skelter all over the map. This was a decision that would turn out to be significant 25 years later. Starting with almost nothing, he had built a business that was a force to be reckoned with in the world of cable and communications. Gerry had always sought growth and expansion while keeping the Lenfest holdings as much as possible geographically connected. The passage of the Telecommunications Act of 1996 and new competition from regional phone companies to open the last mile into customers' living rooms had altered the playing field. Gerry's early decision to cluster his cable holdings would now prove fateful. It made his systems a prime target. It also made Lenfest Communications extremely valuable. The cable industry had passed into a new era, and Gerry read the writing on the wall. In 1999, with the goal of doing the best he could for his company and for his longtime family of employees, he agreed to sell Lenfest Communications. After the final negotiations were completed, Gerry set aside $60 million as bonuses for his employees. It was a gesture that surprised no one. And it served as a foreshadowing of what would become Gerry and Marguerite Lenfest's most devoted cause, giving away their wealth. He had come a long way from that dirt road farm in New Jersey, and his name and achievements had come to be recognized in many walks of enterprise and life. In 1993, the Easter Seal Society named Gerry Lenfest Man of the Year. 2 years later, he made the Forbes 400 list, and Columbia Law School presented him with a Distinguished Achievement Award. In the 10 years since the sale of their company, the Lenfests have presented gifts to education and environmental concerns through the Lenfest Foundation. Gerry and Marguerite's alma maters, Mercersburg Academy, Wilson College, Washington and Lee, and Columbia, all have received sizable sums. And they have endowed the Lenfest College Scholarship Program, helping high school students from rural school districts pay for college. The foundation has also given heavily in partnership with the Pew Charitable Trust and the Earth Institute at Columbia University. In addition to their support for the Curtis Institute of Music expansion, the Lenfests have become among the most generous donors ever to the Philadelphia Museum of Art. And they are admired and respected equally for their personal involvement in the causes to which they give. Gerry serves as chair of the boards of the Philadelphia Museum of Art, the American Revolution Center, the Curtis Institute of Music, and the James Madison Council of the Library of Congress. Gerry and Marguerite's 3 adult children, Diane Lenfest Meyer, H. Chase Lenfest, and Brooke Lenfest, have taken up the tradition of giving as well, all through their own individual foundations. Taking the challenge, welcoming the risk, steering the ship on a true and steady course. These are the qualities embodied by Gerry Lenfest. These are the words and the code that he has lived by. The most important thing in life is how you feel about yourself, he said during an interview commemorating his induction into the Horatio Alger Association. And you know you are successful when you feel good about the way you have conducted yourself in business and in your personal life. The recipient of the 2009 Gold Medal of the Pennsylvania Society, H.F. Gerry Lenfest.